This is the World Organic News for the week ending 7th of May 2018. John Moore reporting. Let's remember to decarbonise the air and recarbonise the soil. This has been a big week. We looked at 3 properties to put the vision into action. Of the 3, one stands out. 12 acres, a livable house, and all good for grazing. Space for veggies and herbs, and room for an orchard. Quinces seem to be in short supply, as do crab apples in this part of the world. We would, of course, also add hazelnuts, apples, pears, gooseberries, currants, strawberries, and the other soft fruits, probably brambles. The grazing would suit a house cow or 2, which would mean some piggies for excess milk. But predominantly we will be running sheep. I've narrowed that down to the Northern European short-tail breeds. The soy, Icelandic, Shetland and Finn sheep are all in the running. Apart from the Finn sheep, the others are slow growing and would be more for mutton and lamb, and this would be our point of difference. The area we are looking at has a vibrant foodie culture, so pushing the rare breed mutton angle looks the way to go. I'm in the process of setting up a spreadsheet to help decide on the breed. For tax purposes, I believe we'll need to set the sheep up as a stud enterprise. And the best thing about northern short-tail sheep breeds is their hardiness and ability to survive and thrive outdoors for most, if not all, of the year. I'll keep you posted on developments and record the decision-making processes along the way. I think this will be helpful for others on the same journey or those thinking about an enterprise change for their land. Now to this week's news from the blogosphere. From the blog INKLINE, EU votes to ban bee-harming pesticides. Quote, the ban on the use of insecticides known as neonicotinoids, or Neonics for short, approved by member nations of the EU on Friday is expected to come into force by the end of 2018. After that date, they will be allowed only in closed greenhouses, The Guardian reported. The Commission has proposed these measures months ago on the basis of scientific evidence from EFSA. Bee health remains of paramount importance for me since it concerns biodiversity, food production and the environment. Vytenis Andrikakis, European Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, said, end quote. This is good stuff, even if a little too late. The importance of protecting our pollinators cannot be overstated. The cover photo on the World Organic News Facebook page shows what effect the loss of these pollinators would have. We would be reduced to a very bland diet indeed. This is especially so for vegetarians and vegans. Pineapples, some citrus, sweet corn, potatoes and ginger, plus all the grains. And it is not a happy picture. There's a link in the show notes to the page so you can see for yourselves. The loss of pollinators, honeybees in particular, has been a concern for some years. The neonics from the quote appear to be a contributing factor. But overall, there have been other pressures building on pollinators since the Second World War. DDT being the first assault on these insects. To be fair, DDT was employed mainly against mosquitoes to combat malaria and other diseases spread by this vector. The effect it had on malaria alone led to Paul Hermann Muller receiving the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine in 1948 for discovering that DDT had an anti-insect property back in 1939. DDT had some positive short-term effects, but as a species we are not good at unintended consequences or thinking things through. So if DDT can help reduce mosquito numbers, we can also use it to spray around domestic abodes to reduce fly numbers, and on crops and swamps and anywhere the manufacturers could dream up for a use of their product. Some 1.8 million tonnes of the stuff has been produced since the 1940s. And it wasn't until Rachel Carson published Silent Spring on the 27th of September 1962 that the unintended side effects were brought to the public. In a quick and dirty summary, DT was destroying the ability of egg-laying animals to create eggshells. This had the effect of bringing to the attention of the US public that their national emblem, the bald eagle, could go extinct in their lifetime. This banner animal ensured steps were taken, but DDT had also affected alligator eggs, turtles and most bird species. The upshot was the eventual formation of the EPA. The point I'm trying to make in a roundabout way is this. Bees have been under pressure for a long time. Neonics are just the current wonder chemical with unintended side effects. Understanding the setup of the honeybee hive is instructive. New bees are born, do their shifts in the hive as they grow before going out to collect pollen, nectar, etc. The balancing act of the hive is to provide sufficient replacements for the foraging bees as they die off. And this has been accomplished over evolutionary timescales, but even then, in a hard season, hives can collapse and die. The weather being too cold or too hot throws the balance out. What appears to be happening nowadays is a pressure on the hives from non-natural causes. The insecticide levels in the environment are sufficient to shorten the lifespan of foraging bees, just a bit. This pushes slightly less mature younger bees out to forage before they are sufficiently grown. The queen senses this and starts laying more eggs to replace the lost bees. The younger bees are, however, unable to bring back as much food as the older, more mature ones would have. If this was the result of a cold snap, then the hive had a chance to rebound when things warmed up again. When it's caused by a pesticide load, the process simply continues until the foraging bees are not replaced because the younger bees are not capable of foraging and/or insufficient food has come into the hive. The most troubling part of this from an outside observer's standpoint, e.g. the beekeepers, all appears normal. Bees coming and going, queen laying and so on. Then suddenly a tipping point is reached and the colony collapses. So the banning of Neonics in the EU is a good thing. It reduces the chemical load honeybees and other pollinators need to deal with. That it won't come into effect until later this year is a shame. If you live in a country where neonics are still being used, it might be time to annoy your politicians, if that's an option where you live. I have no idea how you could affect change in non-democratic systems. It's hard enough in democracies. So, on balance, the EU banning neonics outside greenhouses is a good thing. And with that, I'll draw this episode to a conclusion. Remember, decarbonise the air and recarbonise the soil. As a podcast listener, you may be thinking of producing your own podcast, but you're not sure where to begin. Drop over to mrjohnmoore.com and sign up for my free checklists. These are the pre-launch checklists. There's others coming for the whole process. There's a link in the show notes. A transcript of this episode is also available at worldorganicnews.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week.